This episode is brought to you by the TGS. TGS is delivering high-quality data and insights to power the future of energy. Go to TGS.com now. You can learn more about the merger between PGS and TGS to form a premier data and service company. Learn more about why you want to invest into TGS. I'll leave you with this. 40 plus years of energy data expertise, number one ESG risk rating in the industry, and a $2.4 billion 2024 market cap. Thank you to TGS.
Three, two, one. Let's go! Yes! I'm sitting down. I'm your host of the PBE podcast, Troy Tittlemeyer. We are standing at 2024 WTGS, the West Texas Geological Fall Symposium, celebrating 101 years of geology, of explorers, getting out there and saying, I think we can drill here because I think it's going to make a commercial economic deposit, right? It's going to it's going to create value and create wealth and create this generational change to an area. That's what West Texas Geological Society's been doing. That's what this event's all about. The geologists in the community get together, talk about the rocks. We look at the rocks. We try to make sense of them. And there's so many more discoveries to be had in this profession.
Right.
Even though I just talked about 101 years, right? There's so much more that we're learning by getting together, having a community that can get together and talk about the rocks. What do you see? What do I see? What have you tried? What have I tried? We're all doing that. Everybody that's in this industry is constantly talking about that, what's working and what's not. That's what happens at the WTGS Fall Symposium. Sir, please introduce yourself. Give me an elevator pitch, and then let's go into some of the things that dropped out for us at this podcast.
You bet, man. My name is Luis Sanchez, County Commissioner, Precinct 3. I'm here from Midland, born and raised, and, man, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Right on, Luis Sanchez. Commissioner Luis Sanchez.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time.
You bet.
I know we have a mutual friend of the show podcast. A-Train has been helping us out since the conception of the show.
I'll start calling you A-Train now, man.
Now, how did you get introduced to him? How do you know him?
So when I was at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, he used to help us out with a lot of the sound at the Mex-Tex Family Fiesta. So, man, this guy's a genius.
He's a sound man.
That's right, man.
And he is. He's a genius.
He knows what he's doing.
He's got the heart of a president and a brain of one, too.
Yeah, he does.
But he's just so busy, he can't be our president. Otherwise, I'd vote for him. So that's fine. Understandable.
Vote for A-Train. There you go, man.
Hey, get on the train.
Hey.
That could work. That could really work.
Could work, man. Why not? Let's try it.
You're onto something. You really are onto something. And you're really onto something in what you're doing, man. The dropout for me is, one, getting to know you, getting to introduce, understand who you are. And then there's peace in this, man. There's peace in me understanding that you, the guy that comes from your dad's history, your brothers, your sisters, and now you're in the position of controlling a budget or understanding the budget, using it for road development around Midland. I have a lot of people that I care about and I respect a lot, and I feel like they are going to get a lot of value from the show.
Good.
And what we talked about on this episode. And that's it for me. At the end of the day, I think we got a really good insight of what you do and the inner workings of Midland, even really inner workings of the Texas Constitution.
Yeah, man.
Right? Getting back to what's the importance of a Constitution? Well, what do you mean what's the importance of the Constitution? It's the staple of how everything has worked all the way up to this point. And people can argue that, okay, up to this point, everything seems kind of chaotic. It's not working out too well. What's up with these constitutions? Maybe we should change it. Oh, really? What's your other option? You're just going to make another one, and then we're going to go another 200 years or whatever it's been and try to figure out something else? No, that's not realistic. It's not logical. And what's in place is something of logic. And let's better understand that before we start shouting about how bad it is or what needs to be changed about it.
Right.
You taught me a lot today, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, too. And, I'm glad I had an opportunity to kind of discuss a little bit about what a county commissioner does and how a county works, because I know a lot of times folks don't really understand how county government works. People are probably more familiar with, city government. And it's a great opportunity to be able to share our experiences as commissioners and the work that we do. And sometimes our work goes unnoticed. Sometimes that's a good thing, right? But then there's times that we want to make sure people understand we're here to support we're here to help, and especially out here in West Texas, like I said before, man, Midland is a great place to live. I think it's the best town and best county in Texas, and we want to continue to keep it that way. And the only way we do it is by the folks, right? We want to make sure that our people are informed, and they can help us, with ideas and anything that they want to see.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, man.
Thank God for that, man. That's
Thanks
pretty
be to
cool.
God, for sure.
Very good, man. Well, thank you for sharing time with me. Do you have any questions for a geologist before you leave? You're in a room full of them, even though it's almost empty now because it's taking so long.
It looks like they all left, but I do need to get that
tomorrow.
You gotta give me that information on that road stuff we were just talking about.
Oh, the graphene.
The graphene, man.
Yes.
I'm real interested in learning more about that. So I'm gonna go home and have to Google that, see what.
Yeah, I'll send you some. I'll send you a YouTube video I made about it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Yep.
I'd really appreciate it.
Right on. Okay. So no questions for geologists.
No questions for geologists other than graphene.
last thing for me. What about hobbies, man? Where can I find you without the commissioner tag? Like where do you hang out and let loose?
Man, well, I like to work out, so I usually go work out in the mornings.
How many pull-ups can you do?
Man, don't put me on the spot on that, man. Say about 20.
Can you do 20 pull-ups?
Yeah, man.
Now
you didn't ask me assisted or non-assisted.
Unassisted pull-ups. I got to get better at my questions.
There you go, man.
Unassisted pull-ups.
But and then other than that, I'm very active in my church, man. So I do a lot of youth ministry with our kids. I work with the Catholic Diocese of San Angelo, which represents a lot of this area. So I've been with a high school age youth program that's been going on for years, man. So other than that, man, I just like to be out and about, and I'm usually here in Midland, man.
You play any instruments?
Actually, I do. I play the guitar and I play the trumpet. I used to play for mariachi back in when I was at Texas Tech.
Man, did you sing mariachi by chance?
I did a couple songs. Don't ask me.
Hermoso cariño.
He sabe. He knows, man.
Come on. Let's hear something.
Hermoso cariño. Hermoso cariño. Que Dios me ha mandado para ser destinado no más para mí.
Yeah! Dude, my daughter.
Go, man.
Man. You just made my whole trip. I don't care how tomorrow goes, A-Train. I don't care how the core workshop goes.
Man.
This episode is brought to you by the TGS. TGS is delivering high-quality data and insights to power the future of energy. Go to TGS.com now. You can learn more about the merger between PGS and TGS to form a premier data and service company. Learn more about why you want to invest into TGS. I'll leave you with this. 40-plus years of energy data expertise, #1 ESG risk rating in the industry, and a $2.4 billion 2024 market cap. Thank you to TGS.
Welcome to the conception segment of the PBE podcast. We're going to get through kind of your background, right? I want to hear where you're coming from and how you got to be commissioner. Then we're going to kind of drill down into maybe some of the more energy-focused, mineral rights-focused, what the people of Midland and the community are trying to understand from your perspective, from the big operators or anything like that. We'll just get into some of the energy stuff. And then in the conception part of the show, we'll probably just let that one kind of develop as we get through the show, because there's going to be a lot to learn from you. I've already picked up on some of your background. You talked about your dad. So please, let's start with your story, sir.
Yeah, man. I was so my name is Luis Sanchez. I was born and raised here in Midland, man. Went to schools here in Midland. Graduated from Midland High.
What year?
96. Yeah, man.
96. You're my brother's age. You're 40. He must be 45 or 46.
That's it. 46, man.
46. Yeah.
46. Bulldog here, and after that went to Midland College. Stayed here for school for a few years. And got my associates. Moved on to Tech.
Now, introduce yourself, your title at Midland. What are you doing right now?
That's right. So I'm a Midland County Commissioner representing Precinct 3.
Okay.
Was elected back in 2009.
In 2009.
That's right.
You've been the commissioner.
16 years.
And what's the Precinct 3? What does that mean?
So Precinct 3 is the area, vast majority of it, I could say it's like East Midland and South Midland. And then when it's south of the interstate, it's like from the new loop on the west side to Rankin Highway,
Oh,
all the way to
wow.
the end of the county line.
All the way to the end of the county line.
Yes. So we represent everything out in the county.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
because we're in the northern part of the county, kind of ish. Or?
Right. Northern part of the county. So, I mean, I-20 is right there where maybe West County Road 112 is. So at the very end of the county is about West County Road 330. So it's about 30 miles out
Okay.
from here.
That's Precinct 3.
Precinct 3.
Wow. Is that where you're from?
Yeah, born and raised in Precinct 3.
No
in this area.
kidding.
Yeah, man.
Man.
You know, the interesting thing is, so there's 254 counties in Texas.
How many?
And 254.
Wow.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
the
I've
one that
seen
has
the
the-
map, seen the county map, and it's just block after block after block until it
lot.
gets down to like the southeast, and then all of a sudden they started using rivers and creeks and trees
There you go.
to draw the county lines, you know?
And I think they started from the east going west. So when they got west, they were just leaving big chunks of land, right? So you got
Right.
bigger
Right,
counties
because
out here, man.
what is out here, right? As long as they can
Right.
see, they're like, all right, you can have it like 18 miles that way. It looks like about 30 miles north. You're good.
There you go, man. More like 40 or 50, man.
Now, what's the concept of a precinct from a political standpoint? What is that? Why is it subdivided in that way? What controls it? Sounds like Hunger Game-ish. You know what I mean?
it-
Precinct 3.
It does, man. I feel like I got a whistle here, man. So all 254 counties, man. So we're considered an arm of the state. That means that we're prescribed within the Texas State Constitution. So all of our jobs, everything that we do, we really get all of our rules and regulations from the state, right?
Wow.
Anything that the legislature does to meet any laws, rules, we have to follow anything that they've
How
got.
old's the Texas Constitution?
1880. Oh, don't get me the line here, man. I'm just gonna say 1880 something.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I want to say 1836.
1836.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds about
long
right.
time. Long time. You were written into the Constitution, so that means from then on, the
Right.
state of Texas has been doing things from a precinct divided
That's right.
county way of doing
So
things.
you could be the largest populated county in the state is Harris County, which is Houston, a little bit over 4
Okay.
million people.
Makes sense. There's a ghost in here or something
I
blowing
keep
our
seeing
books
these
down.
Trees, these books coming down. The smallest county, though, is one right here not too far from us, Loving County,
Loving
which
County.
has about 80 or 90 people in that county.
Wait a
so-
minute. What?
Yeah, it's the smallest county in Texas.
There's only 80 to 90 people that live in Loving
I
County?
think the last time we saw was 86 people.
Oh, my goodness.
Loving County, Texas. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That
So
might as
they-
well be Mars.
For sure, man. So they've got four commissioners and one county judge.
Okay.
Houston has 4 commissioners
Oh, my goodness.
and one county judge. So
Oh, my goodness.
you'll see the work for commissioners is very different depending what county you're from.
Yeah.
In Houston, it's kind of like they've got little cities per commissioner. Out here, well, it's more rural, right? So we don't have that many people that we represent within a
So,
county.
I mean, that's an interesting thing. So you grew up in Precinct 3,
Right.
which you're talking about born in the late 70s. You grew up in the 80s. You really were like out there with your neon colors in the 90s.
Man, come on.
You were welcomed in the world of hip hop.
I was out there doing my MC Hammer baggy pants, man. Come on.
MC Hammer dancing
Yeah,
in
there you
Midland,
go.
Texas. I can
Precinct
see
3.
it.
Don't let everybody know that, man. But, I mean, too late, right?
Oh man, that's hilarious. But what I'm trying to get at is like the I guess the philosophy, right? Because and tying this to geology,
Right.
but you have to have a philosophy of solving an issue, solving a problem. If you don't have a philosophy of how you handle issues, then you're not going to be a good geologist. If you don't have a
True.
philosophy of how you handle societal things, you're not going to handle it well.
True.
But you grew up in Precinct 3, and we're talking about the difference between like Harris County and Loving County, where the same concept applies, and in theory, if everything was equal, it would make sense that the precinct of 3 of Harris County would make a lot of sense from a societal and like a policy standpoint from someone with an equal size of that precinct. But if you have such a drastic difference, what is it that a good commissioner need? What are the values of a good commissioner for any precinct?
Right. So there's 2 things that, going back to the Texas State Constitution, that we have to do, man. Number 1 is the budget, and number 2 is build roads.
Oh, wow.
Everything else is just extra. So,
Okay.
you've got some counties that run the hospital district, some counties that run a school district, some counties that may run a port, many different things, right? So depending on your county, you get to decide
Okay.
what are you going to do, right? So here in Midland County, we don't run our school district because there's an ISD here, right?
Right.
We do
Independent
run the
school district.
Independent school district. We do run libraries. That's something that we do here. We run the county jail. Mostly all counties will run a county jail. So yeah, there's going to be some differences depending on the size of your county,
Right.
Of what you want
Right.
to do. So,
But in reality, it's actually pretty straightforward. You get a budget, and
That's
you're worried about roads, infrastructure, getting people in and out of areas. And the other one was
just the budget.
the
period.
budget and
making
roads.
sure that you have a balanced budget every year, and that the money is being spent where you budgeted the money
Okay.
to be
All right.
spent. Those are the
Treasurer.
only two things. Everything else you can add and subtract whatever you want.
Every
for county.
commissioner in the state of Texas has the two fundamental jobs inside the Texas Constitution,
That's correct.
which is roads and budget.
That's it.
Wow. And
Those two.
every county has 4 commissioners.
4 commissioners.
And there's 254 counties.
That's right.
So we're talking about 1,000 some odd. No, we're talking about more than that.
Yeah.
You're getting up to 1,000. You're
1,000
getting at
some odd.
1,000 some odd commissioners.
Commissioners, yeah.
Worried
And
about
then you have the county judge, which is like the executive of the board. Now, the judge doesn't have judicial powers. It's just a title.
okay.
So a lot of times
Judicial
people are
powers meaning
like actually being a judge and a jury to say guilty, not guilty.
okay.
No, he doesn't have that. He's just a like a CEO, for example. of
Okay.
a board
Looking
of
at the
directors.
budget, you're like, hey,
right.
here's my report. He looks at it. He's like, okay, I like what you're doing here, commish. But maybe we could do this, or make sure you're not like. Does he give guidance at all, or is it just kind of an approval
Yeah.
process?
So we usually try to work together to get the
Nice.
entire budget done. It's usually his budget, so we get to add and subtract. Every commissioner can, they take interest of, maybe somebody's interested in working with the library, somebody's interested in working with facilities, maybe another person's interested in working with the jail.
Yeah.
So every commissioner kind of looks for their niche on what they want to focus on within the
Yeah.
budget. And so usually what happens is the judge will say, okay, you go talk to those folks, get everything that you can, bring it back to me. And so we start forming the budget. At the end, the judge will come in and say, we added things and subtracted things that you brought to me.
Nice.
So now it's time for us to go back and add things and subtract things that he did.
Okay.
And as a court, we have to approve that budget. And of course, it has to be 3 people. So 3, if you got 3 in favor, 2 against, well, you pass the budget. That's the cool thing about being a commissioner, that there's only 5 votes, right? Instead of
Wow.
sometimes you got councils that could be 8 people, 12 people.
Oh wow.
Here it's just 5, man.
Yeah. How do the precincts communicate with each other on, like, I guess, actively developing, or like you're the commissioner of Precinct 3,
Right.
which is a really, really from an energy standpoint in the state of Texas has got to be one of the most like dense as far as the energy output of a precinct of
Right.
the whole state.
Right.
Precinct 3 has a massive amount of resources. It has a lot of people in it. You got a lot of people coming from outside of the state, just coming for work.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got all the people who were born and raised here, like yourself.
Right.
And you're in charge of the budget, the roads. But how does the precincts communicate what's developing in Midland on the front lines of an oil boom or the backside of a bust, or how are we learning from each other and getting better as a whole state by having all these precincts?
So within the precincts, usually work together. We usually meet twice a month.
Oh,
and
cool.
Whenever that happens, we come up with the problems that are out there, try to develop some solutions.
Right on.
At that time, one of the biggest things we do is we do like driveway permits for folks that are out in the county that are trying to connect to our roads. Or we also give permits for right-of-ways, right? So if somebody's trying to build something in a
man.
right-of-way, they have to come to us
Really?
to fill out that information.
I might
be
have
able
to come
help.
I might have to come to you in a couple of months here. Talk about some right of ways.
So we work a lot with oil companies here because that's probably our biggest customer, right?
Right.
And our biggest thing is we want to make sure that we've got quick turnaround, because the last thing we want to do, we do not want to be in the way of any type of economic development when it
Right.
comes to
Right.
the oil and gas.
Right.
Because you and I both know, that's our bread and butter here. So we try to do everything that we can to try to expedite it, work with people. Sometimes things don't work out, so we got to come up with a different solution.
Right.
So you got to really be thinking about the next step, right? If something's not going to work out, you think you've seen everything, And then there's a new technology, maybe in oil and gas, that might change the game of how we look at things.
Right.
So you got to be
Right.
on your toes and work with the oil companies and say, okay, well, how do we do this? How do we figure this out? So, that's something I can say about oil and gas and how we try to work with the folks. You even talked about the upturns and the downturns. Another thing we have to do in regards to the budget to make sure that we've got enough money to make it through the year. The hard part about it is that we don't know there's going to be a downturn. So we could be expecting to collect X number of taxes
Wow.
for property or sales tax. And if it's not there, we better have money in a savings account to finish off the year, because you got to pay your employees, you got to pay people, right? So those are some of the things that we have to keep in mind all the time.
Man. Now, being born and raised in Midland, what do you think about the change name of Midland High? What is it? The Lees are now called the Legacies?
Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, I didn't go to Lee or Legacy, so I'm a bulldog, so I can't say much about it.
He's a bulldog.
Yeah,
All
I'm a
right.
bulldog, man.
All right. I like it. That's just down the street for those that don't know Midland.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Well, let's rock it back, man. So you're born and raised in Midland. Your father, your mom, your brothers, your sisters, what was your upbringing like in this city?
Yeah, I've got 3 brothers and a sister, so there's 5 of us growing up there on the south side of town, and just like everybody else, man, I like to go play baseball right after school.
Nice.
Grew up right next to Travis Elementary, so had some good baseball games out there in the back. Of course, all that is gone now because they built the school is bigger. Rode our bikes, and just like what every kid did.
Yeah.
Of course, just like every kid during the 80s, my dad was working out in the oil field. So, he would wake up early in the morning.
That's right.
You didn't see him again until probably late at night.
Right.
And maybe you didn't even see him at all, because when it's time for us to go to bed, and dad's still out there working in the oil field. So my dad did roustabout for many, many years.
Sheesh, man.
Yeah, man.
And for those who don't really understand what a roustabout is, or like haven't worked with someone who's a roustabout, they typically are covered in scars. They could be missing body parts, and that's because the reality of keeping oil and gas wells, especially high-pressure, deeper wells that are very economic, in order to keep those things running, you run into very odd issues when it comes to the physics. Even the sound engineering that says this is going to be this kind of pressure, this kind of volume. You get surprised. You get surprised all the time in the oil field. My father-in-law is 25 years drilling, almost 30 now years drilling, and he calls them worm bites, those scars. Scars, he calls them worm bites. Because when you're a worm, right, when you're just kind of figuring it out, you're going to get yourself in a situation and stuff happens in the oil field.
Yeah.
And that business does not stop. That business is thriving on the backs of gentlemen like him. They're thriving on the backs of people who show up because that's their job.
That's right.
And they're being paid to show up and take this responsibility on, knowing that there's risk and knowing that they know that in that risk, there's uncalculatable assumptions being made in the oil patch. Your father was a roustabout, meaning he kept the facilities operating in a way that the oil well could continue to make economic volumes of gas and oil and get rid of the brine component and safely get that brine component out of the equation because there's no money there.
Right.
Focus on the economic part and make sure that facility is going to be able to handle that and handle it for years to come, not just for a week or two. These are facilities that are supposed to last for years.
Right.
Your dad was on the front lines of that when you were a kid.
He was, man. The other thing about it, he did it for so many years. I guess after a while, you kind of start getting used to it. Of course, there's always going to be surprises. But I think that you really have to love the work. And I can tell you, man, my dad loved going to work, waking up every morning, doing that.
Hell yeah.
Man, he trained so many guys that even to this day, that now that we're older, folks are like, oh, my dad's nickname is Meme.
Meme.
Like, oh, that's Meme. He taught me.
Meme.
I started when I was 18, and he brought me through where I'm at now. And so
now, did you do roustabout growing up?
I didn't. No, my brothers did.
Is that right?
I kind of took the easy way out, man. I decided to go ahead and go to college.
Yeah.
I got invited one time to go out to the fields, not the oil fields, but actually just clean fields like cotton fields.
Okay.
I lasted one day and I said, no, I'm going back to school. It's good enough for me, man. And in Spanish, we call it la limpia, or the clean, where you clean up just the cotton fields.
Okay.
And so that was good enough for me, man. One day.
Hey, I bet I would love to do a podcast with your dad one day and listen to what he has to say about you choosing the route of, you could have went out and got that labor money, right? And labor money sometimes is really nice, and you can make a good living.
You can.
Doing that, and it's a very honorable living.
Very honorable, man. I wouldn't be where I'm at if my dad didn't work in the job that he does.
And that he wasn't good at it.
And
right?
he was very good at it.
That's right.
And I say that very proudly because, not because I say it, because I hear it from other people
that's right,
that he trained, and that they say, man, your dad was good. He taught us a lot. So
man, I'd love to do a podcast with him. Sounds awesome.
Yeah,
sounds awesome, man. When you get that oil on your hands, and you're there and you're fighting that pressure, and it is very exciting.
Oh yeah,
it obviously can be very rewarding. You're filling oil tanks up with something that's selling down at the refineries and going around the world and supplying energy to people who don't get it efficiently. Like, what we do from all aspects of that is incredible. I'd love to get your dad's opinion on starting like a union for roustabouts. You know what I mean? Is that even a thing?
I don't know, man. I have to ask him. So, my dad's retired now. I was going to say happily retired, but there's some days that he's like, man, he's so I live across the street from my parents, right? I built my house to help them.
That's awesome.
And I think that sometimes when I get home, man, my grass is screaming like, get this man a job. He's cut this front yard so many times. We don't want to see the lawnmower again. So every time, he's always looking for something to do. But that's the style for him. It was just work. And
that's right.
When you get them out of the game, they're looking for things to do, because they're, again, from sun up to sundown, literally. That's what they're used to.
Yep.
And that's my dad.
Man, you got a really, really cool perspective on, I think, what's important, too, for the generation that we're in. We're all talking about a generation that doesn't really want to get out there and do stuff like that and be and do work. But there's something to be said in your understanding of peace, your understanding of peace of mind,
right,
and value your peace of mind. And by working on something, there's actually a lot of peace of mind in just doing what you're asked to do to the best of your ability. Don't have your phone on you. Don't have other people calling you. You're asked to do something. You get to do it to the best of your ability.
Right.
Unlock everything that is on your conscience, right? And just do your job. There's peace in that.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't forget that. We can't forget that everyone, I think, on planet Earth has a currency or a value, and it's work. Work is very important.
It is, man. I think that I would say that my work ethic and values, I learned it from my dad, and that's why every time I go somewhere, I've learned from him just to be dedicated. Keep your head down, just do what you need to do. And sometimes you just got to ask questions later, right? Because the job has to get done. So how do you get that job done? Just get it done and, ask questions later. But it's one thing that I'm real proud of, my dad, that he did. And again, that's something I learned from him, and he used to always tell us, you don't have to go work out in the fields. If you want to go to school, but stick with it and finish it. Don't start it and then, oh, never mind, didn't like that. No, you got to figure this out and just stick with it, man.
Well done. Meme, right? Well done. Meme. He's like a sensei.
Meme.
He's like the Midland sensei, man. I got to meet him. That is cool. Man. Very cool. Okay, so you went to community college, and then did you end up going to any major university, or did you get right back out of school and go and start work?
No, once I got out of Midland College, went straight to tech.
Okay.
Spent a couple of years there. Got my undergrad in poli-sci and Spanish, and headed off to Austin. I got a job there with the Office of Secretary of State, being an editor for something called the Texas Register.
Dang, nice. Yeah. The Texas Register.
Yeah, what they do is any law that's passed within the House, PUC, any type of state agency, there's this magazine that they take, that they publish twice a week, and we would just edit it, making sure that punctuation was good, spelling was good, and it just would get published twice a week.
And what was the information that the state was trying to get out to the people?
Any rules that had changed, any new policies that were coming out, it's all packaged in this magazine. And again, it's every department that you can think of. So not every department had something every time.
Yeah.
But it could be from the General Land Office to the PUC, which is the Public Utilities Commission, to the governor's office to
Jeez.
It could be anybody.
Interesting. So when you got there from school, you obviously have the background in your father's experience of like knowing how instrumental the oil and gas industry is to a community and to the stimulation of an economy, right? Like you had that going into school. You really understood that. You saw that firsthand.
Right.
Then you get to Austin. Did you just kind of naturally like come from a different perspective than most, or did you feel like you fit in really well when you got to that position?
You know, when I went to Austin wasn't as big as it is now. This was back in 2002. I was there just a year, from 2002 to 2003. So it was new. It's a big city for me.
Right.
I mean, and again, just going back to the work ethic. If you've got a work ethic, you know what you need to do.
Right.
And you know what the plan is, and you go and deliver, right?
You're just turning out work.
That's it, man. So turning out work, didn't know what I was doing, but I learned very quickly, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very good experience. What I wanted to make sure that I did was to get out of Midland a little bit, get my feet wet, get some experience.
Yeah.
And then within a year, politics came to my door. And started getting a phone call saying, hey, you know, you may want to come back to Midland. We think it'd be great to run for office.
Really?
And
now let's just rock it back for a second. So you got a degree in poli-science.
Right.
I mean, so
the idea was to go to law school, but then I had to wait off for a little bit.
Okay.
I didn't have the funds for it. And I thought, well, let me go to Austin, because I was hoping maybe I can study a little bit there, get into law school either like in San Antonio, Austin, just because, you know, there's a lot more law schools in that area than out here. But it didn't work out that way, which I'm kind of glad, because, again, I got a call to come back home and get into run for office.
How did that call happen? How did that happen?
So just some community leaders here in South Midland. Before I left, you know, I was very involved in my community.
As a kid, as a young man?
As a young man, yeah. I mean, I was 18, 19 when I first started getting involved just in things going on in South and East Midland.
Like what? Like barbecue?
Barbecue? No. More like back in those days, there were some things going on with the school. We used to have a cluster system through the ISD, and so there's a lot of back and forth going in with the community of what was the best thing to do.
Wow.
Not to do.
And at 18, you were involved in.
Yeah. At the age of 18. So this would have been like 97, 98.
Wow.
I had a Catholic, one of my good friends was a priest, Father Tom Kelly. He's passed away since, but he's the one that really introduced me into getting involved in my community and speaking up and making sure that everything was equal, right? And if something wasn't equal, you gotta get up and you gotta speak up, man. Because if you don't speak up, then you're not gonna get what you need. And that's how I got involved. That's how I decided to get into poli-sci. Moved to Austin, and
from your pastor.
Yes, from my pastor. Yeah.
Wow.
And then from that group of folks of just some community things that we were doing, community organizing, getting people out to vote, register. I met a lot of folks, and that's when we started learning more about like what a commissioner does. We didn't know what a commissioner did, what the city council does.
Yeah.
And so we started learning more about how do you get in there, how do you influence the decisions being made in Midland to help out our side of town. And Will was getting involved. And again, that's what sparked my interest into getting into poli-sci, to learn more about that.
Right.
So I come back to Midland, I run for office, and we lose. So my first time I run, we lose.
Well, was it an honorable loss? Like you lost somebody famous?
So I will tell you, there were 6 people running in that race.
Oh, wow.
And I think the top vote getter, if I remember correctly, got like 200 votes. So I was happy with my 123.
Oh, man, that's legit. That's a legit score.
I got 3rd out of 6, man. So I could have been number 6.
That was your first take. Your first take at wanting to be the person that's relied on this specific position, which was commissioner at the time?
Yes, which was commissioner at the time.
So, wow, you got 1 year in Austin, you come back, and you're already hitting the ground there saying, man, I think you'd make a good commissioner.
That's right, man.
Sheesh.
So we went in there. It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it, because I learned a lot about how to run a race, how to get involved, how to be active in the community. And from there, I just continued to work here. I decided to go ahead and become a teacher, so I started teaching at Midland Freshman. I became a Spanish teacher there.
Nice. Hablo español, huh?
Yeah, mucho español.
Nice. Muy, I don't know. I was going to ask, what?
Man, I thought you were going to start telling me a lot of stuff in Spanish. I thought, man.
My wife
Sat button right
is
here,
Hispanic, and she does speak a lot of Spanish. We're trying to make the kids a little bit more bilingual than I am. Very, very different. When I get real mad at the kids, I start speaking Spanglish, you know?
Hey, that works, man.
Now, can you please, for the record, teach me when's the proper time to use por versus para? Because they both mean for something. Para and por. What's the rule?
Para and por. Supuesto. Para. Okay, so I'm trying to think of a sentence here, man. You put me on the spot.
I put my Spanish teacher on the spot too, just to say.
I got my Spanish hat on real quick, man. Let me think about that one. So para would be to do something. Por is you're doing it in behalf of. It'd be the best thing. ¿Por qué dice eso? Por you're doing it because of something.
Okay.
And para you're doing it for something or for someone.
Oh, it's more of like an action thing?
Yes. Well, because para can also be stop. Para can also be also. Para can also be, so it depends in what context you use the word para.
Interesting.
Because por can also be por qué, why.
Por qué, why, right.
So it depends
porque sí.
Porque sí, because yes. So it depends how you use the word. So you got to use it in a sentence so I can understand how you want to use por.
How you want to use por or para.
Or para.
See, that's what, it always tricks me up. Anyway, I'm really good at reading it.
Good.
Terrible at speaking it, like legitimately. Anyway, I love the language.
I'll tell you something I used to tell my kids at Midland Freshmen. Whenever you go home, you know, and you're watching TV in English, put the words in Spanish so you can follow along, or listen to it in Spanish and follow it on with English, and you'll start catching a lot of words.
Yeah.
And the other good thing about it, you hear people speaking Spanish, and you'll know how to pronounce the words correctly.
Okay.
So that's just a tidbit there if you want to learn some Spanish and you want to make it better. So there you go.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Good advice there.
Well, cool. All right. So you start. When did you get your first election that was successful for being the commissioner?
It was 4 years later, 2008.
Okay.
So we lost that race, ran again in 2008. So I was 29 at the time, and I was teaching the Midland Freshmen, and we decided to go ahead and run again. I was asked by a group of Latino leaders had come together, and it was real nice because they were both Republican, Democrat. You know, usually when you run for, I don't know why this state has done this, but whenever you run for any type of county office, you have to run as a Republican or as a Democrat. It's not a nonpartisan. It's a partisan seat every time you run.
What about like the independent?
You can run as an independent,
okay,
but you don't have too many independents winning elections out here.
Just like the presidency or anything else.
It's the same idea, man.
Wow.
So, you know, a group of Latinos got together and said, hey, we want you to run again. And I was very reluctant.
Democrat or Republican?
As a Democrat.
Okay.
Because the area I represent is heavily Democrat.
Really? So Precinct 3 is heavily Democratic?
Correct.
As far as the houses and the ballots that come from those homes and those people tend to vote more Democratic than Republican.
That's correct.
And that's the east side and the south side of Midland.
That's correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of the, well... So Midland, when you say like the east side, is that everything like past Midkiff or?
I would say from Big Spring Street all the way to Fairgrounds, from the Loop all the way south.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a huge part of Midland.
That is
city. Wow.
Yeah, and south would be anything south of like Wall Street or Highway 80, just about.
Geez, yeah. Which it gets spread out when you go south, right?
Yeah, it starts spreading out. Yes, sir. Yeah.
But still, that's a big portion of.
Very big.
Midland. Wow.
So I think every commissioner currently represents anywhere between 38,000 to 40,000 people.
Okay.
That's not voters. That's just folks that we represent.
Okay. And that's in Midland County?
Midland County.
Okay.
Per precinct, because every time you have a census, you have to have a deviation of 2%, which means nobody can have more than 2% of the amount of votes when you're the amount of people whenever you break it up into 4 pieces. So
do the lines of a precinct, do they always change?
They do. Oh. They do. So when you look at them, it's not like a box. I mean, it could be like a zigzag.
Oh,
it just depends how maybe one area has grown more than others. So the one that didn't grow as much has to take from the area that grew too much to be able to balance it out.
So does the line move between every 4 years, or does the line move and
Every
then
10 years, every census.
every 10 years the lines move?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
They don't always move. It could be that you
Sure.
didn't have much growth, so they just stay the same.
Right.
But
right.
usually around the census is when they go back and look at it and say, well, you've got to take more people in or you got to take people out. And so at that
Wow.
time is when the lines move, if they're going to move.
That sounds pretty complicated.
Yeah, it is, man. It's a big process. It's a very
Wow.
big process.
What do you get from commissioner standpoint of from the oil and gas side of things? You talked about easements.
Right.
You deal with a lot of the permits for easements. So this thing comes in, says I need to run a stretch of poly or a stretch of lay flat or a stretch of straight permanent line.
So the only times that we would do that is if it goes through the right of way or if it's going to cross a county road, right? Because if it crosses a county road, we own the road, and they may need to bore under the road to put in that
Yep.
line.
Yep.
We usually don't allow people to lay anything on top of the road. Now, maybe on the right of way, I think they'll do like water lines, sometimes temporary lines. So it just kind of depends. I mean, every permit is going to be different. That's one thing that we deal with. The other big thing, just because we collect taxes, has to do with the sales tax and the property tax, right? So as a county, we want to make sure that our oil industry is doing good. Because if they're doing good, then we're doing good. So one of our biggest things is what can we do to make it easier for our local oil companies to get from point A and point B? Well, one of the things that the Texas State Constitution prescribes for us is county roads. So that's something that we've been investing in the last 5 years. So just to give you an example, Troy, we used to average about, I don't know, man, $50,000 to $100,000 a year of new roads from the time that I started to up to about 6 years ago.
50 to 100,000 a year.
Yeah, more or less on
That's
new
not
roads.
that much money. Yeah.
Not that much money. Sometimes it could go up to $1 million, kind of depending on the year. On
But still, we're talking about roads that talk
That's right.
Tens of millions.
That's a very good question. About 6 years ago, we got a new county judge, Judge Terry Johnson, and ever since he came in, he's been very, very helpful in trying to get the roads that we've been trying to push for, especially south of town, because we've got a lot of roads out there that are horrible. And then vast majority of these roads, something you talked about earlier, are connecting the oil fields.
Right.
So we went from about 100,000 to 500,000, I'll just say. I mean, it's just every year it would change. To now, we're averaging anywhere between $30 to $45 million per year. So just in the last 4 years, we've developed tons of roads.
Wow.
So when you go south of town, you'll see a new South Midkiff Road, a new Cotton Flat Road, a new Southern Loop that we did, which is called
Southern
South County Road
Loop.
1232.
Was that going to hook up to like the 250 loop or what's?
Well, it hooks up on the west side with 250, and it goes south and it goes east, but it ends at 158.
Ends at 158.
We couldn't go. We couldn't go any further because there's too many homes out there, and even if we were, we'd have to buy out a lot of folks, man. And
right.
We weren't willing to do that. But because of that, it's allowed a lot of the oil fields out there to connect, and that way folks aren't just driving into lease roads. We're actually building more and more roads. I mean, we just opened up a new connection for 120, West County Road 130, a new connection. We're opening up next week, 1180. I mean, I can sit here and start naming all these roads that we're opening now, or that we've made bigger, or that we've made stronger. Wow. And we're making them tougher, man, because we want to make sure that they're ready for any boom that we have, or even just the traffic that we have currently right now. We know that we have heavy traffic in this area. And so we want to make sure that our roads are going to last for a long time.
Nice.
And
are you guys messing with any kind of interesting technology when it comes to building the roads, like mixing in graphene? Have you heard of anything about that? Have you guys been messing with that substance?
No, we haven't been.
Nice.
Graphene, no. I haven't. This is the first time I've heard of graphene.
Okay.
But
graphene's the only two-dimensional structure, naturally occurring structure in the world that we're aware of. Everything that we make has 3 dimensions. Everything that we understand in the physical world has 3 dimensions. Graphene only has 2.
Wow.
So that was the only naturally occurring 2-dimensional structure that's ever, and that was like 2007, the guy that discovered that and kind of came up with that. So it's very new. And then we have a big natural deposit of it in Arizona, not in Texas, but in Arizona we have a natural deposit of it.
Okay.
And what I've noticed was that in Europe, they mixed it in with the road, the pavement, and the roads are withstanding the harsh weather conditions drastically better.
Wow.
And if you put it in concrete, it's even crazier.
Even
it makes
crazy,
it makes the concrete even better.
I mean, you talk to some of our engineers and our public works director. That's a very good
Podcast.
Yeah, that's a very good podcast and very good suggestion, man. I want to look into that because if that's what's going to help us, we want to do the best we can because we want these roads to last long.
Right.
And
They
man,
have to.
It sounds like a great suggestion,
Nice.
Man, there you go. See, now you're contributing to what we're doing in Midland County. You didn't think
Geology,
you could
man.
be doing that, right? There you go, geology, man.
It's
works.
always about the rocks. I don't care if you're in
love it.
California, in Texas, New York. I mean, at the end of the day, natural resources and understanding the natural resources is so important.
Right.
I mean, we can make our roads last longer. Let's talk about that. We can build an infrastructure. We have the strongest infrastructure, I think, arguably in the world. The Canadians are really good, too.
Right.
But America and the Permian Basin has such a strong infrastructure that allows the explorers to get out there and drill these wells. If we didn't have the roads and the electrical, we wouldn't be able to sustain what we have. And so building more reliable roads.
That's correct.
Expanding Midland to allow the space outside of the city of Midland and develop this in a larger area, making it all more efficient through road networks. That it's the only way forward. We have to do that.
That's a good point. Another thing that I will say with all these roads that we've been building out there has been allowing all these, I say like auxiliary companies, like companies that support the oil business that are just moving out there and building new buildings because they have more connectivity to get into town, in and out of town faster, where before it didn't exist. Or even just some areas where they just needed more space. I mean, they needed more acreage.
Right.
And because we're building roads where they can connect, it's easier just to build a driveway now instead of having to build a road. But let the county take care of that. And now that we have this road, let's start getting some economic development in here. So that's another big thing that we're seeing south of town.
Wow.
If you drive that South County Road 1232, which is also known as the Southern Loop, you'll see a lot of new businesses that are opening up, and they're all tied to the oil industry. And it's just warehouse after warehouse. And I'm proud to say that it all started 5 years ago when we started developing these roads south of town.
Man, if you build it, they will come.
You know what? Very true, man. They're coming.
Cheers to that.
They're coming, man.
All right, let's dive into some of these interesting questions that we had written up. One of which talked about the county jail, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about the development of the county jail in Midland County?
You bet. So I'll give you some history on the current county jail. Current county jail can hold about 400 folks.
Oh, wow.
And as you know, here in Midland, it's growing.
Yeah.
And so are our needs at the county jail.
Right. You can find 400 people over at like Woodrow's one night getting a little out of control.
I mean, that we also have our court system, which has allowed us to make sure that we start decreasing a lot of those numbers. But going back to the jail still needs some TLC as well, right? The jail is really outdated. We've looked at it many ways to be able to better it, to invest money into it, to make it look better, just to make it work.
Right.
And you just can't, man. There's some times where you throw so much money at something, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, it's just not going to work.
Just need to rebuild or what?
You got to rebuild, man.
Wow.
So we've decided to go ahead and move forward. Took out a CO this year of $170 million. But our credit is so good that we went out for a $170 million bond, but we only paid $155 million for it.
What?
Yeah.
Golly.
That's how great our credit is, and that has to do with the way we run our budget here in Midland County. It's one of the best credits. Yeah, it's unheard of. It's one of the best credit ratings you'll find in the state of Texas, and it's here in Midland because of the work that we do.
Right.
We want to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we've achieved that. Because of that, we're able to build this new jail.
Where's it going to be?
It's going to be out towards a little bit toward the east part of town. It's 1140, and man, I'm trying to remember the other road. I want to say it's like 120, 130. It's escaping my mind right now.
So from like downtown where we're sitting,
you would be going east.
Yep.
Let's say you're going like towards Greenwood, right before you get to Greenwood.
Okay.
That's where the new jail is.
Got it.
So this one is the way we're going to work it. It's going to be a 900-bed facility. Whenever we build it on the outside, it's not really going to look like a jail. We want to make sure that it looks like it's just a building, right? But the good thing about this, we have over 200 acres out there. And what we're going to do with that acreage is when this new jail is built, if we need to make the jail grow more, all we have to do is add pods instead of having to build a brand new jail, right? So you want to be able to build some big common spaces that are big enough to be able to support up to 1,200 people, because it's
a football field. Give them a football field and a baseball field, man. Those guys will all get along.
Listen, man, there's many ideas. Now that we have a lot of acreage out there, of ideas of like what you're sharing right now, why not, right? I mean, the guys are out there. Let's have them do something. Here where it's at currently, I mean, it's just down the street from us, downtown. I mean, there's just no way for us to be able to do what we're wanting to do. Now, we can build up.
Right.
But that's super expensive if you ever want to build second floor. So,
yeah, especially with the earthquakes.
Especially with the earthquakes, man.
Now, the county jail is just minutes away from us right now?
It is.
Huh.
It's about 3 blocks south of us, right here, right south of the tracks. So if you walk out here in just a minute, you look south on Main Street, it's right there. You'll see the jail.
County jail's right there. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, then we're doing a good job to make sure that it doesn't look like a jail.
Or I just, walking. I'm like, I'm going to the bar, all right? I'm not going to the jail.
There you go, man. So it's about 3 blocks south of us right now. Is where the current county jail is.
The purpose of county jail, right, is kind of is more of at least the way I think about it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. The county jail will take in people who maybe are not from the city of Midland, who have been caught for doing something, and they hold them there for a little bit to figure out what's going on with these kind of transplants that are in trouble.
Right. Well, it's a little bit more than that. Okay. Close. So what it is now, the city of Midland no longer has a city jail. So years ago, the city and the county went into an agreement to say, look, if you get rid of your jail, we'll just build one jail.
Oh, really?
And it's going to be for the city and the county. So the county jail actually takes in folks from the city and the county. We actually take in more people from the city than the county, because it's obvious, right? The city's a lot bigger than the county. There's more people within the city limits.
Right.
And so, that's the jail will take in the folks. At one time, we were taking in people from other counties to fill in the beds. But right now, we don't do that because we're actually shipping people off to other counties because Midland is growing so much. And again, there's just not enough room in our county jail. So that's why we're building a new one to make sure that we don't spend that money, because it's very expensive to send people out of county.
Right.
Not only that, whenever they have to go through the court system, now you got to go pick them up, bring them back, take them back, bring them back. So it costs money.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, you want to be able to have a facility here. Now, if you want to be the guy renting space out to other people, hey, that works, because now you're making money by having other counties come in and bring people to your facility because you've got beds
That's built
available.
into the books then, huh?
Correct.
Nice.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
you're doing your job as the budgeter.
Come on, man. We're trying to figure out ways to. There's only so much lemon you can, so much juice you can squeeze out of a lemon, right? So you got to find out creative ways of how do we bring in more money to Midland County.
Got to be careful with Ector County. That's where Odessa's at. You start welcoming too many of those into the jail.
Well, remember, there's some areas of the city of Odessa that are in Midland County. So you live in Odessa, but you're in Midland County.
Is that right?
That's right.
I thought it was like right at the airport it kind of cut off, but it actually goes into like UTPB. Is UTPB in Midland County?
No, it's right. It's close by, but no, it's not.
Okay.
So let me think. Some of the areas like the Odessa Country Club.
Oh, so it's close.
A little bit right there is
where the line is.
That's right.
The Synergy? Is the Synergy?
I think it's right there. Yeah.
Is it on the line?
It's right on the line.
There's some extra money out of Synergy.
There you go, man. So some of that development out there, you'll see that it is that's where the county line is right there. That's where it is. So it's way close to that area.
Yeah.
So a lot of that city folks from city of Odessa are within the Midland County area.
Man, that's a big deal. The county jail. Now, what about this water? You're bringing water to Midland?
Yeah,
this
man.
Is a big deal.
In this area that I'm telling you where we're going to build a jail, we actually started researching to see where we could find water. So we've been looking for water for years, right? Because we've got to find a way to get water for the folks out in the county. Well, we found some water in the actual location that we're at right now. In the 200
drilled water wells?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. We're drilling some testing wells right now.
Nice.
And we're working with the Midland County Utility District, which is a completely different taxing entity from Midland County. They have the word named Midland County in it, but it's a different taxing entity. And they were developed to be able to bring water, to find water, and take water south of town, east of town. So the development actually, during this budget year, we actually just passed a gift of about $18.75 million for them to go ahead and start that development of the wells. They're going to need another $18 million. something that we won't be able to provide, but we were able to give them at least about 18.75
It's a
right
heck
now.
of a gift.
It is.
Heck of a gift.
The reason we did that is because we understand the importance of water south of town. People are running out of water. Unfortunately, some of the water wells out there are tainted with like chromium and other chemicals that are out there. Yes,
There's
sir.
a bunch of chrome in the water. How
There
about
is.
that?
Just south of the interstate between 1232 and Midkiff. There's an area there. There's also the plume at West County Road 112, which is between Cotton Flat and Midkiff. So there's different areas that have plumes where water is. Some of it is like hexavalent chromium. Some of it is. I'm trying to remember what other chemicals, metals are out there.
Whoa.
So that's
lead?
the important.
How about lead? Is there a lot of lead?
There is some lead on some of the wells that we're finding.
Interesting. And then you're calling it a plume. The terminology you're using is giving the inferred model, I guess, the geologic model that it's something that's coming out and coming out in the reservoir. It's a plume. You're using that term. That's an interesting term.
And one thing I learned about this, Troy, I had never heard about plumes and how it works, but some of the folks out there cannot use their water well anymore. So there's some companies that are having to pay for their RO system, which is reverse osmosis. Of course, we know what that is around this area. Because when they were using their water wells, they were actually sucking the plume towards them. So anytime somebody would use a water well, they were moving the plume within that area. So it might shift to the left and to the right. So just to be able to stop it, we had to, first of all, we had to plug all those wells and let people know you cannot use that water. I mean, they didn't want to use it anyway because they would pour it out and it would look like yellow Gatorade.
Really?
That's how bad it was. Oh, yeah.
Yellow Gatorade.
Yeah, man. I remember seeing those videos and just people showing me. They're like, this is what's coming out.
What about when you were growing up? Do you remember yellow Gatorade when you were growing up, coming out of the garden hose? Like,
yeah, yeah. But at that time, man, I guess we didn't care. I mean, I remember.
You're like, I'm thirsty, man.
I'm drinking this, man.
Hey, I've been there. I don't care what it looks like. I'm dying of thirst right now, man. We've been playing football for 6 hours.
I was telling you, we were playing baseball there at Travis.
Yeah, right.
You got to run to the closest neighbor, right? Just around the water hose. And
what the yellow Gatorade is what the water looked like, and it's a lot of chrome in the water.
Yeah, hexavalent chromium, I think is what it's called. But anyway, it's just different plumes that were out there. So going back to why the importance of water, especially south of the town, the area that I represent, Precinct 3, it's very important that we get this water out there. So we're happy to say that, and it takes time, right, to construct the pipes to get the water to these areas. So within the next 5 to 10 years, we'll have water out there. The good thing is we found a water source. And
it doesn't have chrome. It's not yellow Gatorade.
It's not yellow Gatorade. So that's part of the reason why we're testing some of the water. Of what the initial testing, there's going to be some cleanup that we have to do.
Yeah.
But not nearly close to what's going on in some of our areas. It'll be something that we can treat very easily.
Great. That's fascinating,
yes,
man. Yeah. I think that goes to show the importance of the budget, right? And the importance of someone like you that's in this position that understands the budget and is working on this. There's so many places we can all go and say, let's drill a water well here and see what happens. But it has to have something behind it that says, no, because there's going to be a county jail here, because there's going to be this, that.
That's correct.
It's going to develop in this way. That's why we're drilling a well here. And we need to core these things. We need to save the cuttings. The cuttings of all these wells need to be very specifically documented. And it's all going to help with the geologic construct of why it's there. Why is the water there? And where is the natural water going from that space so that we're not drilling wells out where there should never be water wells and you're going to get yellow Gatorade and we follow the fresh stuff.
That's right.
Like we need to map that. We need the state and the city needs to invest into geologists, geophysicists, and engineers that are drilling the best water wells possible, but it starts with the data.
You bet.
The rocks you're getting out of the ground right now are so important.
Mm-hmm. Another good thing, point that you're making there is one of the good things that we're blessed with, the area that we found this water, we found out it's rechargeable. So there's areas that you find that you get the water and that's done. I mean, you're done. It doesn't recharge.
You run out.
So this one, my understanding, it is rechargeable. So the amount of water we're going to be using out in the county is not going to be near as much as the folks in the city. Again, there's a lot more people living in the city than they are in the county.
Right.
I would say that there's probably about 160,000 people in the city and about 30,000 people out in the county total, right?
Wow.
So that's the difference.
Wow.
So the amount of water that we'll be using out there, it's going to give it an opportunity to recharge. So we're expecting that water to last a very, very long time. But of course, like you said earlier, if you build it, they will come, right? We started with roads. So when we start having water out there, it just means developers are going to have an opportunity to say, look, there's some land out there now that's raw, but now we've got water, so we can build. Right now, there's no building because there is no water. So that's another good thing, thinking about economic development and the growth of Midland.
I mean, it shows that there's so much more out there that's just unknown. Like we know that, there should be water out there. There should be oil out there. There should be these resources, but we don't really know. When you drill it and you find it, that's such a big deal. And then I mean, why not bottle it up and sell it? Why not use it to get fresh water from this source that is naturally fresh and it replenishes faster than we use it? You know, one of the concepts of geology is renewable energy.
Yes.
That means that the energy you're using today is going to be renewed naturally in a lifespan. So give it 75 to 85, 90 years, you know, someone like you, maybe 110, you know what I mean, sitting around. But
I wish.
it's got to replenish itself in a human's lifespan. You found a natural reservoir that's out there, and it's replenishing, and it's showing that there's really something here. Bottle that stuff up and be proud of that water source, and then build around that. And that brings the community together and protect this water source and understand it. You know, that's such a big deal, and it's in West Texas.
It is, man, because you don't get to find some of that very often, right?
No.
And then, you know, talking about supporting oil and gas, one of the things that we want to make sure is that if we have water out in these areas where you start developing homes, and now you have places for people to live in. Now you don't have to have so many man camps out there. Now people have an opportunity to live in a home.
Come on.
Right now we can't because there is no water. Well, if you've got water now, you're building houses. Again, you're supporting the oil industry by saying, hey, you can move to Midland because we have homes available, instead of just coming in Monday through Thursday and heading back to wherever they're at, and then they come back on Monday, right? So we keep all that in mind, and that's why it's so important for us to get that water developed out there, because we want to make sure in about 10, 15 years, you know, oil industry is doing great, and so is the people that are working here, that are actually living here. So,
man, that's exciting.
You bet.
It makes me think of an oasis. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Not to get extreme with it, but like the Saudi Arabians made that island out there in the shallow water, and it's all badass. And that's what we could do out here. I mean, people think of West Texas like, there's not much water out there. It's not. No, it's not true. This place has plenty of water. You just got to find it.
Right.
And when you do, build oases, build places that people would like to go.
You bet.
Doesn't that sound amazing?
I mean, it sounds really amazing. And I'll tell you another thing. Although we found water now, man, we're still looking for more, right? Because, you know, that's going to be the next, I think, biggest fight is who's got water, right? Because you've got so many towns around us that are just running out of water left and right. So biggest thing is to make sure that you get as many water rights as possible. And maybe we can get to that level where now you can have water parks because you have plenty of water. Why not, man? I mean, again, you want to develop a town where people want to thrive and grow. And
that's right.
I think Midland is this town, right? And we're continuing to grow.
Well, you're the guy.
To thrive, man.
You're the guy. I don't know if I need to say it on this podcast or not, but you're the guy because your father, your experience, watching your dad do what he did.
Yeah,
Can you imagine building an oasis for
awesome.
people like him and the families like his that want to grow up and do something different, but they can't, right? This is what they had. This is what their lifestyle is, and this is where it comes from. It comes from oil and gas. He doesn't have to travel hours to get home anymore. He can go right back to a place that has good, clean water. It's got water parks for the kids. You know, it's a game changer.
Man, why not? You know, and I will say, you know, I'm very grateful for my fellow commissioners, right? And you know, everybody comes with different experiences.
Right.
And I think that's what makes such a great team, to be able to do the things that we do, that we're able to share with each other our different experiences and say, hey, I want the best for Midland. Oh, so do I. Well, so do I.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's put these ideas together.
Yeah.
Let's package them and let's get it out there. So here in the last 4 or 5 years, man, that's what's been happening with the current court. And man, I feel very blessed. And again, with the county judge that we have right now, again, we went from less than $1 million in roads a year to like 40 to 50 million every year, man. There's been years where we budget $50 million and we can't spend it fast enough. So we've got to push it to the next year.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough workers working in some of these road construction companies to be able to build the
Man.
roads. And
Well, so I think it's some part of education, right? Like
Right.
people that have a heartburn of like, how could you spend so much money? My uncle paved roads in California.
Right.
He created a successful business. He's kind of still spearheading it a little bit. He told me $1 million a mile.
1.2 here in Midland.
$1.2 million for 1 mile
for
of
1
road.
mile. And that doesn't include sidewalks or curb and gutter.
So you're
It's
talking
just a
about freaking
road.
less than 50 miles. Even with the $50 million budget, that's less than 50 miles of road. That's nothing.
That's right.
Compared to what it takes to actually get this energy out of the ground and build a facility or build an area that can actually sustain the work that people need to do every day to build the energy that this is, that the Permian Basin has, to build that resource out. We need much more than 50 miles of road.
Man, and the other thing is, too, we want to save lives, right? Because as we're building these new roads and making them better, it's saving lives out there because you're building safer roads. You're
Right.
building roads that people want to be on. You're building roads that are not going to are not going to go bad after a few years, and now
Everybody's
you're having
been
all
on a
these
bad
accidents.
road, and the sun's in your eyes, and they're
man.
oh my god,
especially out here in West Texas, right?
Oh.
Because you don't have hills, and sometimes you don't even have clouds, man. So that sun is right there. You have
The
nothing
shoulders
blocking you,
just
man.
brush and desert, and you're just
And then you're not even talking about a dust storm coming in, man. That's a whole other story, right?
Man, Midland, Texas, the only place where the dust storms blow back and forth.
That's right, man. That's when Lubbock blows into Midland, right? You're like, it smells like Lubbock. Yeah, it's a dust storm coming in from over there.
I've never heard it smells like Lubbock. I love that. That's good. All right, so how about looking ahead, man? Looking ahead, let's talk about the future as
bet.
commissioner. How do you sustain your status? Right? Is that if that's where you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to become mayor of Midland? I mean, do you want to change out of what you're doing? What's the future look like?
You know, I really enjoy what I do as a commissioner, man. And I think that that the Lord put me in the right place because
Wow.
I really enjoy doing what I do. I wake up every morning just excited. I've been at it for about 16 years now, and I love what I do, man. I think that everything that I've learned through my experiences, I know that this is where I need to be. I feel very blessed to see some of the growth that continues to be in Midland. Some of the things that we're going to continue to plan is, we just talked about it, the water, the upcoming jail. We've got a couple of new buildings that are coming up to be able to process people faster through the court system, because that's another thing. We want to make sure that we're fair as we process people through our system, through Midland County. And the best way to do it is making sure you got the facilities and the people and the technology. And sometimes you can't have the technology because the building can't support Wi-Fi or, this doesn't work here. And so we're trying to better Midland to where we continue to be the best county in the state of Texas. I truly believe we are the best county in the state of Texas because of our
Really?
people, because of the energy that we have here. Because of, our people, man. I think that it says a lot. When I go around the state talking to some of my fellow commissioners, I also serve on a national board for counties, and even around the nation, and I talk about what we do in Midland, and people are always surprised, like, man, this is amazing. You guys are doing so much stuff. Your tax rate is low. There's so much money coming in. Well, it's because of the oil industry. It's because of what we do here, and we want to continue to support what feeds us, right? And my plan for the future is to continue the work that we're doing, to continue to expand whatever we can south of town. I want to make sure that we see more neighborhoods being built, homes being built, to be able to sustain, the workers in the oil field and just the workers in general in this area. Because you don't have to work directly for the oil field. You can work indirectly through the oil field, but you're making a lot of money because of the oil field, right? So we always have to keep that in mind, that the oil field feeds us, even if you don't work directly with the oil field. It's feeding us.
That's so you say it in a way that I feel like a lot of people will understand what you're saying because we're in it.
Yeah.
But for someone that doesn't understand that,
Right.
energy and reliable energy in the source of gas, natural gas, and oil production being done every single day is actually what's sustaining what you're doing. I think you can stretch it much further than the county of Midland, much further than the state of Texas,
You bet.
the United States. The world is relying on the fact that we have people like your father who have all those worm bites, who have all those scars, who learn the hard way.
That's right.
that are transferring that to the next generation.
Correct.
That's understanding, oh, wow, this is why I have what I have. Like your appreciation for politics and what gets you up every day was built on the backs of years and years of hard work in oil and gas generation.
Very true, man.
For you, you say it very easily, but people don't understand that, I don't think. Like, we need to do a better job at getting people to understand that energy at its core, the raw tooth and claw of energy, the injuries, the danger, the non-reliability because people get twisted out on drugs and get all messed up, and then the people who stay in it, who make a career out of it, that's all part of it. That's all the story. That's all.
Right.
And just like their story that has them completely disconnected from energy, I think if they had ability to get back to connect to energy and realize that, oh, it's all about just good energy, stable from this country, and I'm getting able to do my job, maybe that gives them an opportunity to feel good about that and be motivated like you are every day. You feel like God has given you signs to do this. That's incredible, man, to have faith, biblical faith in what you do. You wake up with biblical faith, like you come out of the house on a different level than most people. But you've connected all these dots to make that happen.
You bet.
So if you're all disconnected, you got to get back to the energy, man. We got to get back to the raw tooth and claw of what we do.
You know, I got to say one other thing is, you know, we got to be proud to be Midlanders. And being proud to be a Midlander, you've got to go out there and advocate for what we do here.
Right.
And so everywhere I go, I advocate for who Midland is, what Midland does. I don't care what anybody says about oil and gas. We know that it works. It's sustainable, and it helps us get to where we need to be. You know, all my family wouldn't be where they're at right now if it wasn't for oil and gas. The reason why they came to this region was for oil and gas. So we can't forget that. And it continues to be that as we speak today. And I think that when you and I are gone 100, 200 years from now, it's going to continue, because I know that that's just what the trend has been. So if we know it's going to be here for a long time, let's work at it, and let's be part of the solution, right? Let's expand it.
Yeah, accept it. Let's integrate. Let's make it better. Let's
it's
work with
here,
what
man.
we got. Yeah. What do we need? Something different. What are we doing on time, A-Train? Everything's good? We're cruising right along.
All right.
Emmy, what's happening? Nice. Corona in hand? What do you got there? Corona, I could tell.
Y'all are smiling too hard over there.
All right, so we kind of covered this one, what motivates you to serve as commissioner. There's a lot there. There's a lot behind that. Beyond your main goals, are there additional projects or initiatives you hope to address in the future of the Precinct 3, this area we're talking about?
Yeah, you know, I think going back into the economic development part, I think that there are things that we can continue to do in Precinct 3. I hate to beat a dead horse, but going back to water, you know, there's still areas south of town where it feels like it's a food desert. I mean, we don't have enough grocery stores. We don't have healthy places for people to go eat, you know, restaurants. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, that we're able to continue to grow that type of industry south of the interstate, south of town, because we've got a lot of families that live out there. We've got families that have lived out there for generations, and they want to continue to live out there, and they're never going to move, right? So the best thing for us to do is to continue to move the town forward, which includes, you know, some of the areas in town that have not been moved forward in the past. You know, I'm very proud to say that in the last 16 years that I've been commissioner, we've been able to push a lot of that economic development. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of things out in the county, even within the city. And I love the fact that we have a very good partnership with the city of Midland and Midland County. You don't see that very often in many communities, but here in Midland, it's very alive and well. We try to communicate with each other because we understand that. I mean, it's the same pocketbook that we're looking at. It's the same taxpayer, right? So whatever we can do to help that taxpayer save money, but at the same time make things better for Midland, I mean, we're going to do it, right? So that's one of the things that I want to continue to do.
Awesome.
Make sure that economic development continues to grow in a very equitable way.
Man, it's honorable. It's honorable, admirable what you're doing. Because to me, you're really like that staple in the community between reality of what I do every day and what I want every day from the person, but then the bigger picture, like the energy corridor picture of the Midland Basin. Like, you get it. You get both of those. You understand the operator's role, their needs. You understand the people's needs. You lived it. You grew up in it.
Well, I live there now, right? So I hear it every day, and I purposely make sure that I'm out there every day and hearing it. You know, one of my biggest things is I tell people, you know, don't complain when it's too late. Let me know ahead of time. So I always give out my number, which my number is 432-688-4803. Again, it's 432-688-4803. The reason I do that is because I want people to really take ownership of what they do, and I want to take ownership of what I do, and I can help you.
Wow.
But sometimes they say, well, I don't know who to call. Well, I just gave you my number.
Call Mike Jones. What did you say?
Give me a caller and 432-688-4803 or lsanchez@mcounty.com if they want to email me. And I just think that that's very important because I don't get ideas just because I sit around in my living room and think, I got an idea. You know what? And my ideas sometimes are not the best. So I've got to go out there and talk to folks and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. They're like, oh, my God, no, dude, no.
Your best sounding board are the people who reach out to you.
That's right. Going out there, and if they don't reach out to me, then I got to go out there, knock on doors and say, hey, I hear this is going on in this area of town. What do we need to do? So
man, community barbecues.
Yes.
Community barbecues, man. I always felt like that could have been a real thing in Midland. We should just all get together in downtown and just barbecue.
Man, that sounds great.
Right?
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, I know you're a little sideways on this subject, but let's talk about it, man. Let's just talk about it. Not going to sit here and solve anything, but let's just get together, man. Get together and talk about it and try to understand it all better. There's so much complexity in the middle of all the technology growth, right? Like oil and gas. We're here for a geologic convention. We're here to learn about what's working, what's not. Technology's in the middle of all this. And so we get people who boots on the ground like your dad who saw it empirically and just bowled their way through the wall after wall, and they know what works because they did it. They're the ones who made it work. But then you got technology developing that whole time. And there's all kinds of weird things that come with that, and people with competition and everything else. So when you get together with people, though, you can talk about it. And the reality is we're not all that smart. We're all like, we got it. We get it. I'm good. You're good. Let's try to make it better. Like, that's where we're all at. That's the generation we're in. We're trying to just there's a lot of information coming from the computer that maybe is good or bad and different. But unless we're together, and I think sharing a meal and sharing time like you're doing with the people in Precinct 3, you give out your phone number. I'm going to call you, by the way.
Yeah, go for it, man.
And put it on the podcast. I'm going to be like, hey, I just testing this out.
Just make sure that I'm in my office because remember, I'm always out in the community too. So if you call and you leave a message, I'll call you within 48 hours. That's my rule.
Golly. All right.
So
I thought I was going to catch you like 3 a.m., like whispering.
Yeah. I don't know about all that, man.
I was just thinking about you, man.
I'll be like, well, gotta wait 5 more hours, man, if it's 3 a.m.
I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for spending time.
You bet, man.
At the PBE
Thanks
podcast.